This is Packer and Durham on ACCN and SiriusXM Channel 371.
I had some doctors send me a list of like 10 things
To eat?
to avoid and all that stuff for gout.
How'd that go?
It was great because I've had this before.
Yeah.
I haven't had it in a long time, but I've had it before.
Yeah,
And the last thing they put on there was like, don't eat like Bojangles. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. They're a sponsor. You know, I'm all about the sponsors. So I can't take that out. Red meat, alcohol, wine, shellfish. Okay, I'll pass on the shellfish.
Coming up, Jackie Sherrill on this show at 9:30. Excited to have him. Tom Luganbill, bottom of the hour. Roddy Jones, 9 o'clock as the cavalcade continues on a Wednesday.
Excellent.
Everything good?
No,
Okay.
everything is
All
not
right.
good with me. This has been whether folks know it or not, I'm in a lot of pain. A lot of pain.
Yeah. But you look good and you're doing well.
Great.
Okay.
No medication, too.
Lots of enthusiasm.
I'm fighting.
I know.
No epidural. I'm fighting through this.
No, absolutely not. No painkillers for you.
No,
that's
no.
it. Yeah. All right, let's go to conference cuts. You ready?
I'm ready.
Now there are a couple
I saw fun with food. Don't disappoint me, smart people in Bristol.
I don't think we are.
You better have foo in here.
All right, let's go to Pat Narduzzi in Pittsburgh to start with.
Dudes.
Johnny Majors Classic coming up on Saturday. Remember now, Josh Heupel, the coach at Tennessee, used to be at UCF. Pittsburgh just finished a home and home with the Knights a couple of years ago, so Coach Narduzzi knows a little bit about what they're going to see on Saturday.
It looks, very similar. I'm sure they'll have some tweaks for us, maybe that they didn't show in the first game, but very similar. I think they're snapping the ball faster. I mean, we've got probably an average of 11 seconds they're snapping the ball on offense. Defensively, they're a little different than they were in the past. I mean, Tim Banks came from Penn State, so. Their defensive coordinator, so there was a lot of look like them as far as playing a lot of man free, a lot of 4 down, and a lot of different variations in coverage, which I'm sure we'll see a few just to try to confuse Kenny a little bit.
Well, I'm going to be completely transparent here too. The good news for Pat Narduzzi and Pitt is the team that he will see on Saturday isn't as talented as the team he beat. When Josh Heupel brought UCF up there, they did the old trick play. Remember that? That was a great play for the W. But folks in Knoxville, my brother's an alum. Hey, they're 1-0. It's been a while. They're ready to kind of get back to being relevant. It's an important game for both teams. It really is. It's kind of a tone setter. I think Pitt's got a chance to take off with this W.
Yeah.
They can get it. But it's a good one.
Don't forget Coach Sherrill at 9:30. Looking forward to talking to him. Justin Fuentes next.
Let's go. Here we do it.
Talked about not letting the Hokies' success from last Friday impact their preparations for the mighty Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee State University on Saturday.
You play non-conference games for postseason recognition, and it starts with Middle Tennessee this Saturday. We've got to do a great job as coaches and as a staff of getting refocused, wiping the slate clean, getting recharged, fill our cups back up emotionally, mentally, and physically, so that we can put a great effort out there Saturday. And we will be challenged. I mean, Coach Stock has been at MTSU, I think, for 16 years. He's done a fantastic job there for some time. They can run. When you look at their overall team speed on both sides of the ball, they've always been fast, and they can really run. They scored 50 points last week, and we've got to get our football team ready to go. And if we're got serious aspirations about being the type of football team that we've talked about, then we've got to be able to do these types of things. We've got to be able to put the previous week behind us and move forward. There's plenty for us to work on in all 3 phases.
All right. I've noticed a new thing with Fun with Foo. As opposed to last year.
Okay.
When Foo would kind of hunch over the mic, he'd always have a water bottle near him.
Yeah.
Better posture this year, Fun with Foo. He's now gone with the interlock behind the mic, right? I've noticed that. So he goes interlock behind the mic, and then he gives you this one. recharged. Fill our cups. By the way, I don't have a cup. I'm 20th in the top 20. Don't have a cup. Come on. Over the Hokies. Got to have a cup. Team runs fast. They can run the football. As coaches, how do I not have a cup?
Exactly right. How do you not have a cup?
19th.
I know.
West, we're
Look,
19th.
look, we got it.
I love it.
Oh man.
The Hokie. Mrs. P's happy.
Oh yeah.
Boys are ranked in the top 25. Crack that top 20.
That's right.
Tell you what, fun with Foo, man. My favorite. He is my favorite cut every week.
All right, let's go to Raleigh. Dave Doran at the podium desk, if you will, yesterday. Talks about the environment, i.e. cowbells, Saturday night in Starkville.
First time in a while that we'll be preparing for crowd noise. And the cowbell will be in full effect, I know, and we look forward to that. We look forward to the pageantry and the noise and fanfare and everything that goes into it. It's going to be awesome, and I have great respect for Mississippi State's program. Have for a long time. You know, they're a blue-collar, tough group, very similar, passionate, tough. I like what they're about, and I've always respected how they play. Coach Leach, have known him a long time, and he's a winner.
What's going on there?
I don't know.
I know this much.
What's that?
Hey, Mississippi State. Let me talk to y'all a second. I like Stark Vegas. I like their barbecue. I like their fans. All right. But NC State's not worried about no stinking cowbell. When you're coming from Raleigh, NC State ain't worried about no stinking cowbell.
Right.
Telling that right now.
That's true.
It's going to be a good football game. It's going to be a great test. And Mississippi State, they dodged a bullet last week against La Tech. And the Pirate, now he's going to throw that thing all over the yard, so prepare yourself. Dave Doran and his guys, I think they'll be up for this. It's going to be a really fun game to watch.
I'm not going to be surprised if the Wolfpack don't go in there and try to run the rock, sit on the football.
Well, I will tell you, Mississippi State will be physical up front. I mean, they've always recruited well from that perspective. And NC State, again, Dave, we had Dave on.
They're physical too.
He wants to win a fist fight.
Yep.
Dave Doran's teams want to beat you up.
Yep.
So this is going to be a good one. Well, ACC, SEC, and quite frankly, our league is due to win one of these.
Zay Flowers was with us in hour one talking about, game one, the win over Colgate for Boston College. Well, now Jeff Hafley from yesterday's press availability just wants to get back out on the field, whether it's on the road at Amherst or anywhere.
I just want to play football. And if that means we go to UMass, then let's go to UMass. And if it means we have to go somewhere 4 years in a row,
These the Nixon tapes?
And I tell the guys all the time, who cares? We get to go out and play, and don't worry about where it is, right? We get a certain amount of home games every year. We get a certain amount of away games. We don't have to get on a plane for an away game, which is nice. Plus, the other nice part is it gives us a chance to, hopefully we'll get some fans from different areas in the state to drive in and watch us play.
What's the matter? Got an issue with that one?
Thought for a moment I was listening into some conversation with H.R. Halderman and former President Dick Nixon.
Tapping into a press conference? Is that what we're doing there?
Thought for a moment we were wiretapping.
I am not concerned this week for BC at all.
Yeah.
You've seen UMass.
Yeah.
You've seen them.
I've seen the Minutemen.
They got no shot when Hafley and the boys come in there.
I'll let Roddy Jones answer that question for you at 9 o'clock.
All right, fair enough.
Roddy's big. He followed the UMass plight this year.
Well, you can follow it, but they're going to get smoked Saturday.
All right, let's go to Atlanta. GC5 at the microphone. Tough first night out for Georgia Tech. But Collins says this is all part of the process for the Jackets.
Everywhere that I've been, everywhere this staff has been, we have built things and found ways to get it done. And that's what's going to happen, right? So we have complete confidence. We tell stories of experiences, the ways that we have done it. However long it takes, it's going to be different at every place. So just those things, the staff that was with us at Temple knows exactly where we are, knows exactly where we're going, knows we're going to get there. It's just when it's going to happen, and sometimes those lessons, those experiences, all those things have to happen for you to get there. And as you're building it, there's certain things that you can't get to the core of this problem until you get through these 3 layers that have to happen. So we're continuing to build. I know we've been here before. I know where we're going. And we just got to continue to do it, have complete confidence. Our guys are great. We finally have a player-led program. I had to pull them up at the end of practice and have another life lesson, program building lesson about the moment we were in. And those things have to happen for you to reach the success that we're going to have.
Need to win this week. I mean, that all sounds great, but you cannot lose to Kennesaw State.
Yeah, Jackets are prohibitive favorites on Saturday at Grant Field. It is Saturday afternoon, 12 noon start.
Got to win that game.
In Midtown Atlanta. Durham is our final stop here on Conference Cuts. David Cutcliffe and the Blue Devils welcoming North Carolina A&T to the Horseshoe on the West Campus on Friday night. Eric McLean, Matt Berry will be there for the call with Bridget Condon. And Coach Cutcliffe, like a lot of us, realizes it's a slow start for the league after week 1.
I think it's 1 week, 25 practices, limited number of contact days, not being in someone's camp, not knowing, how beat up they were or how prepared they were. You got to roll the dice as a coach to scrimmage a lot and get enough snaps to be game ready. And so I don't think we would overreact to any of that. The dust will come out. I'm going to, excuse me, turn my vote in tomorrow on the coaches poll. I mean, okay, Alabama number 1. That's a pretty good shot. The rest of it, you just roll them out there, So I don't think early we really know a lot, right?
Sixes. We're kind of doing that. Cut gave us 2 dice rolls on that. And, by the way, the Blazer. Touch class. Touch class for the Blazer.
Hey, we've had a lot in an hour and 13 minutes this morning, by the way. We've had a ton. Do you realize this morning I worked with a meteorologist, now a dice roller?
Snake eyes. Come on, Duke. Wallace Wade Outdoor. This is a W this week. Got to get it.
Friday night, 8 o'clock, right here on ACC Network.
Matt Berry's there.
Matt Berry, Eric McLean, Bridget Condon.
Oh, we don't bring those folks in for just any game. That's a dice roll right there.
Yeah. Matt and Mac. How about that, huh? How about that game? What?
David Cutcliffe.
If you think about it, we got 5 games in about 24 hours on ACC Network.
We just better get a cup from my man Fu up there. Number 19 Hokies.
Filling up the cup.
Filling up
We
the
got
cup.
one of those ACC Network cups we might be able to share somewhere in Bristol.
I'll send
in
one
a closet.
to him. In fact, I may just send, because I do have an ACC Network cup.
Do you?
I do.
Okay. Maybe you'll put that up there on the podium.
How great would that be?
That'd be awesome.
Hey, Coach, listen to me. I'm going to send this to you. All right, next week at the press conference. All right, I'm going to send you my ACC Network. I only have one. It's not in the budget, but I got one. I am sending you. I'll wash it before I send it to you. Remember, I'm married to a Hokie, so you know it's be done right. I'm going to send you my ACC Network cup, and we want that on the press conference tomorrow, next week. After you talk about running Middle Tennessee State right out of the building, getting ready for that game against the folks up there in Morgantown. So I'm going to send it to you, Coach. Handwritten note too. It's coming your way, from us to the Hokies.
You gonna put that in the mail today?
Yep.
The Packer and Durham Podcast.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
Here's Mark Packer and Wes Durham.
Last week on Off Campus, which you can hear from 4 to 7 p.m. on the ESPNU radio, Sirius XM channel 84. The commissioner of the Pac-12, George Kliavkoff, joined us. Now, I had never met George, never spoken to him before.
Virginia grad.
Virginia ties.
Yeah.
I actually brought that up to him. I said, well, what was your experience like at the University of Virginia? And he's talked about being on the rowing team, and he said, that's where I really got into sports because I was part of a team, and he did some stuff for the Goodwill games and et cetera, and he got tied in. And he brought up when he was at Virginia, and they lost to Georgia Tech in 1990, and the Who's were number one.
Scott
George Welsh.
Sisson, youngster with the educated toe.
So I brought that up. I said, man, I brought up the Georgia Tech. I said, how'd you guys lose to Georgia Tech? And he's like, you salt in the wound. He goes, earlier that year, we beat your Clemson Tigers. And I went, whoa.
Okay.
The commission did a little homework on the host here.
Commission's throwing a dagger at Pac.
But it was great. So, again, we connected on that and went down the road with a bunch of different stuff. But he does have a complete working knowledge of our league and a respect. And it's part of the alliance, which, again, was put together, Big Ten, Pac-12, and the ACC. So I asked him a bunch of different questions about a number of different topics. And one of the things we got into, I asked him about him sharing his thoughts about the moving parts of putting the alliance together. Here's what he said.
When you talk about the alliance, for me, there's really three components to it. There was a piece of it where we had 41 institutions that are like-minded in many respects and that are going to work together through the Office of the Commissioners to think about how we work through those issues. NIL, CFP expansion, NCAA, and in no way is this a voting block. I mean, we compete against each other, but it is an agreement to discuss these matters and try and do what's right for college athletics and the collegiate model and kind of perpetuate that. The second piece for me is I think because of the commitment that all three conferences have to student athletes. And by the way, when I say that, it's not to say that other conferences don't have similar commitments to student athletes, but we talk about this, and the three conferences are very committed to our student athletes, and I think there are things we can do together to help our student athletes that we may not be able to do alone. And then the third piece is obviously the scheduling component, and that'll be where the rubber hits the road.
That term single-mindedness that you heard a bunch when that was announced really does come into play here. And in the 15 minutes I had with them, you can absolutely sense that connection of the dots with those three leagues. And where this thing goes, again, it's anybody's guess. I know a lot of folks, this has got no chance of working. I mean, nobody knows. We're going to figure this thing out. But the direction of college sports, these three leagues have got their hands in the cookie jar as far as determining what we're going to try to do here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that he points out a lot of different things. And he's at the forefront of this with Jim Phillips and Kevin Warren. But again, we'll go back to some of these principles that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. One, and I mentioned this yesterday with Keith and Tom down in Tallahassee, the Association of American Universities, PAC. You say what you want to say, folks. This is it. This is the organization in its full stride here, trying to protect the core values of these member institutions that are in these three leagues.
And the unknown of what happens to the NCAA,
Absolutely
which I asked him about that as well. And he's like, Pac, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I got to get more information when everybody meets in November. So it's certainly worth keeping an eye on. If it turns out the NCAA can't find their place, well, guess what? The direction of college sports is going to be brought up by these guys and Greg Sankey of the SEC. I mean, they're all going to work together. I know everybody's talking about the friction, all this stuff. Hey, at the end of the day, there's too much at stake for everyone not to work together to get to the finish line. So I suspect that will happen.
Did you talk to him about the college football playoff?
I did. As a matter of fact, I asked him about the reports, which came out last week, that there could be some proposals in terms of a roadblock, and here's what George had to say.
In order to expand the playoff before the end of the current term, you need a unanimous vote of the 11 members of the CFP board. And one of those members, the president of West Virginia, publicly said last week that he's not voting for it. So, I think without having to have, any sources that haven't gone on the record, you just look at that and go, yeah, that'll slow things down. We're very much in favor of expansion. I wish my predecessor had been in the room, although I understand he agreed to not be in the room when those decisions were taken about how the 12-team playoff was put together. There's a lot of good in that proposal. There are definitely at the margin some issues that it creates. But I think those are issues we can work through. I'm hoping we get to expansion. I'm hoping we don't have to wait till the end of the current term to expand.
Okay, couple of things from there.
Yeah.
One, he has already identified the volatile piece of Gordon Gee. President of West Virginia, former President Vanderbilt, former President of Ohio State, among others, right?
Yep.
Brown, too, I think, in his worksheet. He's already identified it has to be a unanimous vote, and Gordon Gee said he would vote against it. That's number one.
That's what he said to a school paper, yes.
Number two, George Kliavkoff has been a guy who has been very, very deliberate about talking about multiple media partners. He wants the media partner piece worked out. Now you say, why is that his particular platform? Well, guess what, folks? He's very good at that.
Yep.
His media strategies help make, MGM a lot of money and a lot of success. The Pac-12 tournament came to Vegas in part because they were where? MGM. He understands kind of how that works. I think he has a big voice in that room when it comes to that.
There's no question. That's part of his expertise. I was really impressed with him. I got to tell you. Again, Jim Phillips, new commissioner of the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Warren has been at the Big Ten for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And as I asked Kliavkoff, I said, do I call you commissioner? He goes, call me George. So I got it. So George, my buddy George out there on the West Coast, so you got this new blood, if you will,
right
in the room. Greg Sankey, of course, veteran,
absolutely
established, and everything else has done a brilliant job of the Southeastern Conference. So those four guys in particular are really going to be the direction of where we head. And for everybody talking about, there's friction between the Alliance and the SEC. Hey, I'm telling you, there's too many zeros and commas and stack full of cash at stake for them not to work together. And they will work together. Will they have differences? Of course.
Mm-hmm.
No different than a married couple, for crying out loud. But you'll figure it out if you know what's in your best interest. And again, I think everybody's kind of waiting to see where the NCAA falls into this or doesn't and where the direction goes. As far as the college football playoff expansion, George laid it out there pretty clean to you now. I mean, it just sounds like, hey, I know they're going to get together and meet in a couple weeks in Chicago, but unless everybody's rowing in the same direction, there's going to be some delays. It just seems to me that that's inevitable, that we'll have some delays here.
Yeah, we're about 2 weeks away from the expected CFP Executive Committee meetings in Chicago.
I like the fact, too, I got to tell you, I like the fact, like when John Swofford was the commissioner of the ACC, we always call him commish, right? And he was cool with it. Now, there's some guys who are a little more formal. I'm Commissioner Smith or Jones or whatever.
Sure, right.
But I like the fact that the guy said, Pac, just call me George. I like that. That informal style appeals to me.
There you go.
So I'm just going to call him George, if that's okay with you.
Everybody calls you Pac.
Yeah, if somebody calls me Mark down the street, I'm going to walk right by you. I wouldn't even know you're talking to me.
There you go.
Packer and Durham. This is the Packer and Durham podcast.
Packer and Durham on a Wednesday. Let's not mess around. Let's get right to the man. He'll be in Knoxville this weekend for Pittsburgh and Tennessee, the Johnny Majors Classic.
I think he's going to do an appearance at Calhoun's down on the river at some point before the game.
Everyone should do an appearance at Calhoun's on the river.
I think he's actually doing either Copper Kettle or Calhoun's. I can't remember in Knoxville.
Calhoun's is good, man. It's a go-to.
Get him a plate of ribs down at Calhoun's. That'd be about Lugs' speed.
Yes, sir. I'm all for that.
All right, let's roll it out into the woods here in outside of Charlotte. Tom Luganbill from his inner sanctum, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Lugs.
Good morning, guys. How you doing? Ready for a little week 2 action?
We are. We're ready to put week 1 behind us here on ACC Network.
Are we done? Are we done making knee-jerk reactions and basing everything off of one weekend that's going to apply to the next 13 weeks? Can we get past that now? Can we acknowledge that not everybody's going to look the way they look this weekend?
Well, you don't have to ask us that question. You may ask some other networks that question that want to fast forward the clock, but that's not our problem. But the issue, though, Tom, is that the ACC needs to start winning some games of note. We talk about changing the narrative. There's some opportunities this week. In fact, you've got one of those games with Pittsburgh and Tennessee.
Yeah, I think perhaps we may have one of the biggest ones. And I think a lot of it has to do with the environment that it's going into. Last Thursday night in Knoxville, I know it was Bowling Green, but Vols fans showed up, and it was a packed house, and I would expect nothing less at noon on ESPN this coming Saturday, and it's going to be a great opportunity for the maturity of Pitt's team, the leadership at the quarterback position, the maturity and leadership on defense, the playmakers they have, to prove that they can handle the moment. They're going to go into this matchup, the more talented and more experienced team. Obviously, Josh Heupel in his first year, one game under his belt. But this is a tremendous opportunity with what happened in the Coastal for Pitt to take a big step forward and prove two things. Number one, you can win in a hostile environment. And number two, take advantage of what's going on around you within your conference.
Tom, let's go to the common ground here that Josh Heupel and UCF played Pittsburgh twice, I think, in the last 3 years. How much carryover is there? We ran a cut from Narduzzi talking about Coach Banks, I think, was at Penn State, so he would have some familiarity with what Mark Whipple's going to do. How much common ground is there for two teams who obviously haven't played very much, if at all, in their histories?
Fairly significant common ground, especially when it comes to Pitt defensively, knowing what Tennessee is going to bring to the table. Tennessee wants to average between 85, 90, 95 plays a game. So you're going to get a ton of tempo. Now, listen, the thing about Tennessee, and I would imagine Randy Bates, the defensive coordinator at Pitt, will acknowledge this when we talk to him on Friday, is right now they're not to the point UCF was when UCF was really, really humming, or maybe even Josh Heupel's offenses at Missouri. So everything has been oversimplified. There aren't a lot of formations. There aren't a lot of plays. The focus is on getting a bunch of plays in. So it's not as if there's a ton to prepare for scheme-wise, but you have to prepare for the tempo. Well, the one thing I know that stops tempo is you don't allow first downs. Mm-hmm. If you watch Louisville Ole Miss on Monday night, once Ole Miss started getting first downs, it was 100 miles an hour. So if Pitt defensively can limit first downs, they know they're going to get tempo. They know they're going to get a lot of it. You want to take Tennessee out of their comfort zone, don't allow Tennessee to get first downs because you will eliminate tempo and you'll take control of the game.
I'll keep it within the ACC, SEC matchups. NC State looked really good Thursday night, dominated South Florida like you expected them to. Mississippi State found a way to knock off Louisiana Tech with their comeback. It's kind of a litmus test game, isn't it, for Dave Doeren and his Wolfpack? Because this is the team, and I think, Tom, is a top 25 club. Now they got a chance now to go out and prove it.
I totally agree with you. And the one thing that I look at with NC State defensively is I think you've got to be careful when you play Mississippi State that you don't try to say, hey, well, we're going to man them up and we're going to come after them and things of that nature. This is a Mississippi State team that refuses to run the football. And when they attempt to run the football, they are not effective in doing so. And if you looked at Mississippi State a year ago and you saw all the teams that took them on, it became real apparent real quick that teams got in a three-man front, dropped 8, dared Mississippi State to run the football, and we're not going to allow one-on-one opportunities. Mike Leach wants one-on-one opportunities in the passing game, but if he's not going to attempt to run the ball, I think NC State has to go into this matchup defensively, daring Mississippi State to attempt to run the ball, get in three-man front, drop 8, and challenge Mississippi State to do the one thing they don't want to do. And the environment, difficult. There ain't no doubt about it. That back end zone that's closed off there when they get the cowbells going, woo, man, I'm telling you what. So on offense, NC State better be dialed in.
Hey, Lugs, general question here. Whose dark clouds are you most concerned about after week 1? Clemson, Carolina, or Miami?
Probably be a close tie between Clemson and Miami. And listen, we talked about this. I told you guys I was very, very concerned about Clemson in the offensive line. Obviously, I still am. I'm sure they are too. But when you struggle up front in that area, there's a trickle-down effect that affects everybody else. It affects your run game. It affects your quarterback's accuracy, your quarterback's willingness to hang in there and trust what he sees, because now he's rattled, he's getting beat up. And they just couldn't get into rhythm. So I know they're not going to play a team across the slate of their schedule that resembles anything close to what Georgia is defensively. But that doesn't change the fact that they've got to get things cleaned up really, really quickly in the offensive line. Now, Miami, once again, I just think has a real difficult time when they get caught up in the hype of a big game. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to turn that corner. They haven't been able to answer that bell. And I don't necessarily mean winning the game. I'm talking about being in the game, competing in the game, being in the third and fourth quarter and having an opportunity to win it. What I believe most people expected out of Miami this past weekend was what we saw out of Florida State. All right. And that's we saw anything but. So there's a lot of work to do. Again, Alabama, Georgia, clearly right now, particularly on defense, Alabama on offense as well, the classic college football. But if I'm North Carolina, I think North Carolina, they're going to be okay. They ran into a bit of a road buzzsaw. I thought the crowd played a huge role. Virginia Tech on defense never let North Carolina dictate terms and allow that thing to turn into a track meet, which I think really aided Virginia Tech's offense.
There's so many different storylines to go here. I think this is a really important week for Miami, though. I mean, forget Alabama. That's now rearview mirror. We're going to find out the maturity of this team, right? I mean, all of a sudden, Michigan State, Sparty looked pretty good running the football, beating up on Northwestern. That's the following week. But here comes Appalachian State. It's not going to be one of those headline games for the folks in South Florida. Go, oh, Appalachian State's coming. Let's get juiced up. Hey, it's a home game. Hard Rock should be cool, but you know what? They're going to have to play a good football game to knock off Appalachian State. If there's any kind of hangover effect, that could be a problem Saturday.
Big time. I mean, you can't let Alabama beat you twice, and so it's going to be interesting to see. You mentioned the term maturity. If this Miami team has a short memory and can move on. And listen, the game I had this past weekend, if Miami doesn't think that App State's coming to play, go watch Oklahoma and Tulane. And so they better be ready. You know, App State's well coached. They have nothing to lose. They come into all of these matchups each and every time. In fact, I had the last game between Miami and App State that was up in Boone, and Miami took care of business on that day. And it will be a real telltale sign of whether this team's feeling sorry for itself or whether it's able to put everything in the rearview mirror and charge forward.
All right, I want to play to your hits here, play to your strengths a little bit. Sam Howell and DJ Uiagalelei had tough Saturdays rather. Where are you with their performances after we set this bar of expectation probably pretty high for both?
I felt like Sam Howell was frustrated. You know, a year ago, you felt like they were always in such rhythm, right? They would dictate terms to the defense. I do believe that the run game hasn't come into its own yet, so more of the weight of the offense is on the shoulders of Sam Howell. But I think overall, long-term, they're going to be fine because Sam Howell is an innately accurate passer, which leads me to my concern about DJ. I don't know, and I understand he got beat up, he had people in his kitchen, but I don't know if he's an innately accurate passer in the way that a Trevor Lawrence was, in a way that a Deshaun Watson was. He sprays the ball around, doesn't always make it easy on the targets, and for all of his physical gifts, all right, decision-making and accuracy trump height, weight, and arm strength every day of the week. And so I credit DJ for his comments post-game, owning the performance, not placing blame on anybody else. But he's got to start delivering the ball in a more effective, catchable manner on a consistent basis. And hopefully with some improvement up front, you'll then see improvement in accuracy.
All right. Is he still – I mean, that was just his third start after all. Are we still to a point where I've always heard quarterback guys who follow the art of it like you do, sometimes you can put it in their hands to throw it too much. Is Clemson in a case where they need to kind of manage the number of times he throws? Let him be a run game factor. Let the other guys around him be a run game factor until his confidence builds?
I think so. In fact, I would expect to see more quarterback run from them and try and get what coaches call +1 by adding an extra runner. And the runner being a quarterback, it forces the defense to have to add an extra body into the box. And then when you do that, it can open up your play action game because you have more one-on-one opportunities on the outside. We know Clemson has weapons. I just think they got taken out of their comfort zone, and when they realized they couldn't effectively run the ball, then it was, all right, pin your ears back and come after Clemson. And it was a difficult day because the offensive line wasn't humming and DJ was constantly under duress. And so you do have to somehow get some semblance of run game production. But I believe that you can help that by including DJ in the run game in part of the offense, just to get people to back off just a little bit.
Tom, just listening to you, offensive line issues, quarterback, this and that. We've only watched 1 week of the season.
Yeah.
Clemson's still the favorite. I mean, the way everybody's giving me the gloom and doom on this, it's like, oh, boy, if they can't run, they can't do this, inaccurate thrower. Where's Clemson in the big picture pecking order within the league?
I think they're going to be just fine. I really do. They're not going to play a team like Georgia on defense. They'll improve. They'll get better from week 1 to week 2, and then you'll continue to see progress. But they, to me, I said this prior to the season, and I don't know if you guys agreed, but I think we glossed over, and many people did not give the credence to the loss of production of Travis Etienne and Amari Rodgers. Those guys were such security blankets and provided so much to the offense. And now all of a sudden you're having to break in new elements to the offense that don't have that type of significant sample size. So they're going to be fine over the course of the season. They still have superior talent. They have, I think, outstanding defensive principles that will allow this offense to continue to grow without having all the pressure on them because your defense is on the field all the time. That's not going to be the case for Clemson. And we're seeing that. Look across college football. All right, Clemson got beat. Didn't play their best football, but you know what? They're not Georgia Tech right now. They're not Washington. All right, there's a lot of teams out there that lined up week 1 and lost to inferior opponents because they weren't focused, they weren't ready to play. I don't necessarily think that was the case here. I think Clemson was focused. I do think they were ready to play. I just, on this particular day, they made more errors than Georgia did.
One team that did lose their opener, but you know what? People are feeling good about them is Florida State. I thought their effort and how hard they played against Notre Dame Sunday was a sign that, guess what? Just guess what, man? The Noles might have turned the corner.
Let me tell you something. In the last 5 years, every Florida State team I've seen or I've done a game and been on that sideline, if they would have gotten down 38-20, they would have folded their lawn chair and gone home. Yeah. It would have been over. And this team did not do that. And I was proud of them. I saw a team that started to care more about the team than their own individual aspirations and accomplishments. They battled, they fought, they scrapped, they scraped. I think it's evident they named the wrong player the starting quarterback. But that's neither here nor there. Hopefully they'll go forward, I think, with Mackenzie Milton because I think he brings something to that locker room, to that offense, to that huddle that you can't coach. I felt like, Jordan Travis was scared to death for the majority of the game in the passing game. He didn't bring much. He brings the athleticism. He had the nice deep throw down the sideline. But it's clear to me that they need to go in a different direction, and that direction is Mackenzie Milton. But you're correct. I would agree. I think the overall sentiment was, all right, was it perfect? No. But you got the 9th-ranked team in the country coming into your house. You're unranked. All you've seen and heard is negativity the last 4 or 5 years. And you finally do something positive, and I think it's a great building block for them.
All right, 2 pieces to that as a follow-up here before we let you go. Can they play both guys, though, for an extended piece of this schedule because of the chemistry that both have shown toward one another and the likability between one another?
If it helps the team, absolutely they can. I think that's the whole goal. Is it something that helps the football team? Is it help the locker room? Can they do some things with some guys that they can't do? Like, I don't think they feel overly safe about, running Mackenzie Milton unless they have to. But they can do those things with Jordan. So that gives them some options, makes them a little bit more difficult to defend when the opposition has to come in and be ready for potentially 2 different styles of offense. And the other area too that I thought stood out that was improved, the offensive line was improved. Is it where it needs to be? No, but it was improved, and there was some spark in the run game at times. So we saw some bright spots there, and there are no moral victories here. Mike Norvell knows that. But if you take anything away from this game, it's that all of a sudden, for lack of a better phrase, Florida State's give a crap quotient was way up here instead of being way down here.
No, that term gets used a lot here at ESPN. Gotta tell you.
I tell you what, we've had so much go on since 7 o'clock this morning. I mean, we've had Pack play meteorologist, dice roller with David Cutcliffe, a lot of other things, and now we've got your
breakdown.
Yeah, your breakdown and analysis of Florida State's intentions. How's that?
There you go. Hey, listen, I'm here to give the people what they want.
All right. Well, let me. You tell us. Is it going to be Calhoun's or Copper Kettle on Friday night in Knoxville for you and Pash and your merry band of warriors? Dvorak, who finally gets on a plane.
It's a difficult question to answer because the two booth tulips that I'm paired with, especially Dave Pash, he's a little bit of a delicate daffodil when it comes to where we choose to eat and what the wine list looks like and all of these sorts of things. Well, generally, here was how it worked in the past. Now, Dusty Dvorak's with us now, but generally Thursdays is bar food, appetizer food, sports bar, watch Thursday football. Then Friday becomes a little bit classier, maybe beer in a glass, those types of things. But I'll have to see what the fellas are thinking once we arrive in Knoxville.
Well, I'm glad I'm not hanging out with y'all. I got a better gig.
Hey, tell them, Luke. Monday night with Packer at a dinner is going to happen here at some point soon. Yeah. We're going to have our own Monday night football dinner.
But he better adjust his attitude or he ain't coming.
That's exactly right.
Oh, well then, if I'm not coming, I know neither one of you two are buying. So that means it's not happening.
Wow. There you go. Safe travels, Tom. Great to see you. Be well, my man.
Good to see you guys.
Here's Mark Packer and Wes Durham.
Packer and Durham, Chester Fuller, Robert Otto. That's the roll call as we're sitting here on a stormy Wednesday morning in Charlotte, North Carolina. Roddy Jones coming up top of the hour.
That's
Looking
right.
forward to that. And, of course, Jackie Shearer on the Power Hour as well.
Yep. One of the things that kind of comes to mind after week one is how'd you handle the football? I mean, think about it, because if your team won the turnover margin, there's a good chance you won the game, right?
Not always, but that helps.
Yeah. So we had our crack staff do some digging, Mr. Packer. We went all the way back to 2014 to look at turnover margins and pluses or minuses. This is since Louisville joined the league to start playing, 2014. Look at this now. Miami plus 38, Duke minus 38. Those are the ends of the spectrum. The winning percentage alongside here. Georgia Tech is 0, even. How about that? 47.7 winning percentage. Wake Forest is plus 16, under 50% winning percentage. Syracuse plus 16, 36.5% winning percentage.
The one that jumps out at me is Florida State. Negative 26, but yet winning percentage of over 61%.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about cleaning up your act per se. What would that number have been if they were 0?
What if it were single digits?
That's what I'm saying. Either way, I mean, red 26 is not great.
No,
but you're
not
still
at all.
over 500, which is a beautiful thing.
How about a fascinating look at that? Just that one stat right there since 2014.
Yep.
All right, let's go the last 7 years. Okay. I think you're going to – okay. If I were to pose this question
Here's the bar bet. This is the bar bet.
All right. The last 7 years among ACC schools, who is the only one with 7 positive years of turnover margin?
Every year being a positive.
Every year being a positive.
There's only one.
There's only one, and there it is.
If you're looking at the screen, you know the answer to the question.
Boston College. Each year they've had a positive turnover margin. How many schools would you have? Well, yesterday we guessed 3, 4 before we got it.
Yeah, I would have lost this bet, as usual. By the way, Duke, how about nada? How about the dice roll king with 0 there?
Singular concept. How about Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, kind of in that 4 out of 7 years? Look at the number of schools. There's 6 schools with 4 or more years of positive turnover margin. Any schools surprise you of BC, Clemson, Miami, who've had 5?
Well, BC at 7.
State.
Going 7 for 7 is remarkable. I mean, listen, the odds eventually the ball bounces away from you, right?
But
you just have one of those kind of years.
Let's also remember, too, that most of that tenure was Steve Adazio ground and pound.
Yeah. But still.
Don Brown's defense at times.
But still.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ball
That's
gets
not
loose.
the name that would come to 9.
No, I mean, listen, we kicked around this idea yesterday, and I was still guessing. and I never got to BC. I thought maybe Wake Forest, because Dave Clawson's really done a remarkable job in that department since he's gotten to Winston-Salem. But no, the answer is BC. 7 up, 7 down. All good.
How about week 1? Have you forgotten about week 1 yet? Because in week 1, the spectrum was +2 to -2. NC State, BC, they were in the plus. Wake, Syracuse, Clemson, Virginia Tech all had one takeaway. The minuses. Pittsburgh was a weird turnover. Carolina, they gathered but gave. Louisville -2, Duke -2, Miami -2, Florida State was -2. And let me say this, both of the -2s for Florida State were sensational plays by Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
Not good plays.
Right.
One of them, he's the only guy in America playing college football that can do it, I think.
That's exactly right. But that correlation of being a positive equals a W is normally pretty good.
Yeah.
Normally, that's one that you can just take a look at. I know Clemson fans are screaming, "Hey, there's a positive pack. We took an L." You know, turned out to be that one turnover was the only score of the game for a touchdown.
The Packer and Durham Podcast.
Ms. Combs, please raise your right hand.
She was the darling of Silicon Valley.
Magazine cover after magazine cover.
But now, accused of massive fraud, she faces decades in prison if convicted and continues to maintain her innocence.
This is not fake it till you make it. This was a product that didn't work.
I'm Rebecca Jarvis, and for more than 5 years, my team and I have been following the case of Elizabeth Holmes, and we're here to guide you through every development of her trial, from the new evidence presented in court to how the jury might react to her new life. New episodes of The Dropout available Tuesdays wherever you listen to podcasts.